Welcome to Retro Scale Modelling. This is part 18 of the Hachette HMS Hood Scale 1 to 200 build. In part 17 I finished off with doing the pompom platform. I'm going to be carrying on with that in part 18 and making up the little housing and so on, as well as going on to other platforms. So let's jump into this. As I worked on the housing for this part, there was quite a lot of gapping issues, so I had to fill them in. So what I'm doing now, I'm just sanding them all down to make them smooth. You may notice on the mat as well that I've already started on making one of the windbreaks for the deck. I didn't film this for some reason, but it's half built there. So once the structure is built, it's 43 medium grey. Again, this is the colour that I'm using predominantly throughout the build. So issue 1, 2, 3 is the actual windbreak. I managed to find the video. I just put them in slightly different order. That's why it appeared that I hadn't filmed it. So anyway, the windbreak itself is quite a simple thing to make up. The only main difficulty was the angle of the parts, because it's about a 30-degree angle that it sits in, so I have to make sure it all lines up as always. There's a couple of little foot-edge parts that go on the edges here. I think there's some sort of vent or something, or hood for an opening. I'm not 100% sure, but they were easy enough to go on. Moving on to issue 124, and this issue is predominantly for these little winches. There's a couple to make up, about 7 in total. Each one is a left and a right, so I had to be careful how I was building these. But first of all, I had to drill the holes to build them. There's a little indentation there, but the instructions suggest that you drill your hole all the way through. And the build itself is fairly simple. With the hole being drilled, it's just a matter of pushing this cap in to where the hole is to complete the build. Issue 125 is going to put me back onto the pompom platform. I should point out with these issues now, they are supplying parts for future stages of the build. So when I'm showing them here, they may not necessarily correspond to what I'm actually building next. So back to the platform, and first of all I have to cut out a section for the access ladder. Why this wasn't molded in the first place, I don't know, but it's a simple case of using my snips to cut it out. I used the ribbing along the wall as a guide to what to cut out. The bottom of the pompom has support pillars, and these are supplied in a brass rod, which I'm having to cut to size. They're then fitted into the location points on the reverse side of the platform. Next is a circular collar that goes on around the edge, and that just simply pushes onto the platform. This was already pre-curved, so I didn't have to worry about doing that. And next was the access ladder, and at the top there I'm just using my tweezers, the roll bar, just to bend around the top prongs of the ladder. And that simply fits in where I made the opening on the pompom deck. On the main unit, there is a few foot-edge parts going on, lots of ladders and hatches, so I'm just making my way around the actual unit. Some of them are quite small to put on, and some of them do require a bit of bending in places, but there's nothing unusual there really for them going on. I'm using 07 black gloss for this part, just painting in a little strip just beneath the, well, just at the window line. The instructions don't tell you to do this, but it's better to have a background colour on it before you put the photo edge part on and try and paint into it. Then once it was dry, it was a simple case of bending the photo edge part around. As you can see, I've already bent it so it just fits into position. There's two little rods that go at the sides, and one of them was missing, So what I'm doing here is I'm using some stretch sprue just to get a piece of rod to fit in. Once it's cooled down, I just cut the length that I require. Um, when I done it, I made sure that it was quite thick at one end and tapering down to a thin point the other end, just so that in between that I would get the thickness that I need. So this is the two parts going in now. The first part I'm putting on is the part that was supplied. As I said, there should have been two of these, but there was actually only one on the sprue and nothing else in the little bag, which was annoying. And then the next part that I'm placing on, I'm filling in the gap with a little bit of sprue glue. So that's the filler. And this just gives me the little square block housing that the original part had before placing in the rod. It takes a little bit longer to set this, but it will give me exactly what I need to replicate the other side. So moving on to issue 126, and here is a couple of more platforms that I'm having to build. These were quite tricky to build, especially the smaller ones. I had to take the base of the platform, then a strip of photo etch and bend it around the base and secure it. I found this very difficult to do. It kept on springing out, and in the end I just cemented it in little parts at a time. So just went down the line, added a little bit of cement, waited until it dried, and just carried on all the way down around it. If I tried to do it all in one go, it was just slipping out of position. Onto the larger platform, that was a fairly simple process. There's a couple of arches that have to be placed on first before the main unit is placed inside the housing there. And once the base plate was in, it was just a matter of placing some bits pieces inside it, little boxes and arms, things like that. Now that the smaller platforms are dry, and having to place in the support ribs along the wall, these are very small, and it took a while to get them in. But as you can see here, I got them in, and then it was just a simple case of flipping it over and putting in the support beams on the underside. In issue 127, I'm going to be carrying on with the previous units that I built up, so the main platform here. So I'll just be putting on the side walls and making up some additional units. So first of all, I have to place on the top plate, and that's just secured with a little bit of white glue. You can use super glue, as I've said many times before, but white glue, especially for something this big as going on wood, is probably your best option. It just takes longer to dry. Now the interesting thing about this piece of the unit is only half of it is actually secured to the base. So I had to make sure it was all lined up and the walls were perfectly straight before it's set. And once the plate was set in place, it was time to put on the side walls. Now there's quite a lot of them to go on here. I just picked a starting point and started working my way around the unit. A lot of them had to be bent into position. There were some tricky little bends to do, especially the half moon curves. They were quite difficult. In the end, what I did was I used my little hand drill bit just as a curve shape to press them into shape, and that worked out quite well. I'm also placing on the remaining panels for the second little box that I made up. This one will actually be fitted onto the main deck. It goes in the centre. And while I'm waiting for the parts to dry, there's a couple of little side units that have to be made up, and these are just two main units put together, and there's a little sort of tail end piece that goes on the end. I'm going to bring part 18 to an end here. It's a good place to end. One of the main units is done. In part 19 I'll carry on with more plate areas and photo etch work, railings and so forth. So if you haven't done so already, why don't you check out the channel for my other builds, or indeed this build. If you subscribe to the channel, you'll be notified of all my future builds, including the upcoming videos for this build. Hit that like button and of course leave a comment. But for now, thank you all very much for watching. Bye bye.